Miller más en formación escopeta con el vaquero Woody Marks a su costado derecho. Paquete pesado, personal 12 para USC en el campo con 2 alas cerradas. Acarreo de Woody Marks. Marks de las 5 a la zona de anotación. Touchdown USC. Los troyanos toman la ventaja con 8 segundos restantes en el último cuarto del partido. LSU alzó las manos y dejó entrar al vaquero Woody Marks para su segundo touchdown de este juego. Y los Trojans van al frente de nuevo.
Hola, aficionados de los Trojans. I didn't do that very well, but hello, Trojan fans. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham. Welcome to the Peristyle Podcast on a Tuesday. I'm joined alongside triple-double Connor Morrissette, and we have the Spanish voice of the Trojans and the Las Vegas Raiders, Harry Ruiz, joining us from Las Vegas. Harry, how you doing, sir?
Doing fantastic, Ryan. That was a very good intro for your show. Hola, aficionados de los Trojanos. I loved it, brother. Great to be with you. Great to be with Connor. Appreciate the invite, man.
Thanks. I can say hello like loud. I've never tried to say hola, hola. Like that's a little harder to go hello. Like can just keep going on that. I don't know. I should have practiced that. We just literally came up with it right before we went on the show. But really excited to have Harry on the show today. USC hadn't had a Spanish broadcast of the Trojan football program for quite a while, and Harry came along last year, and we want to kind of get his journey coming to USC, and his doing his lifelong his career goal was to be the Las Vegas Raiders Spanish voice, play-by-play guy, and he's doing that also. So we're going to talk about all that and growing up a USC fan here in Los Angeles back before the Raiders were, the Raiders were here, but they left, and then no Rams, of course, no Chargers back then. So we're talking about all that kind of stuff. Connor's here. We're going to have our regular show or talk more about what's been going on in the USC football program after we say goodbye to Harry later on. Talk about USC's new strength coach, some of the big-time commitments that USC got recently, some linebackers and stuff. So we'll get to all of that, but we got to talk with Harry first. But, man, well, again, welcome into the show. We've talked in the press box a little bit, like, hey, we got to do this, we got to do this. And I'm glad we got the opportunity to finally do it.
Literally, like press boxes all over the country. We would have talked about him every Saturday, but I was like, man, I'm going from being here tonight to being in LA tomorrow, and Monday's my day off, and then Tuesday I got to start working all over with Raiders and SC. But I'm so happy that we're doing this today. I'm a big fan of what you guys do, so I appreciate being here with you guys.
Thank you very much. And Harry, just to fill some people in, I was really fascinated with your schedule because you're doing both USC and the Raiders. So fill in the viewers, the listeners. How does it work when USC is a road game or Vegas is on the road? What's your schedule like on the weekends?
Yeah, so I'll start off with the Monday. That's usually my day off, and that's where I kind of relax but start getting some prep work done for the week. I do my own charts, my own boards. So it start getting a little bit of getting that ready. But then Tuesday out here in Las Vegas, I film a podcast with the Raiders, the official Spanish podcast, Las Noticias Raiders. Get in the building, start writing some articles. Then by Wednesday, I'm doing a one-on-one interview with the player at practice, continuing my prep for the USC and the Raiders games. Thursdays, I finished writing an article for the Raiders website. And last year, when the Trojans were on the road the first couple of weeks, I was traveling on Thursday night to fly out with the team on Friday morning and be with the Trojans on the road, call the game on Saturday, fly back to LA Saturday night, and then Sunday, first thing in the morning, 5:30, I would be flying out to Vegas where I would call the games out here. So USC, I'm on location every single game. Thank you to the USC Trojans for that. With the Raiders, I'm at the stadium for the home games, and when they're on the road, I'm calling the games from a broadcast studio out here in Las Vegas. So it ended up working perfectly because if I had been on the road with the Raiders, I wouldn't be able to call the Trojans games, and it all ended up working perfectly for me. But once football season starts, it's a nonstop grind. And last year, actually, the Raiders bye week ended up being at the same time as the USC second bye week of the season, so it worked out perfectly.
Oh, nice. Yeah. You mentioned, and Connor talked about this a little before we went on air, but this was calling the Spanish games for the Raiders was like a dream job. How did you get into that? And then we'll get into the how you got into USC.
Yeah, so I started broadcasting football when I was in El Paso. I called UTEP football for 3 years with them. It was an amazing opportunity, even though the team didn't do that great. One season they made it to the bowl game. The other two, they barely were getting any wins. But that's where I started my football venture of being a play-by-play announcer. And then when I moved to Las Vegas, I was like, hopefully there's an opportunity to get some work done. And I started off as the color analyst for the Raiders in 2020. And then in 2021, I started doing first and third quarter play-by-play. And then by the time that 2023 rolled around, the second half of the season, I was doing play-by-play the entire game. And that's been the case since. And man, if doing Raiders football was a dream come true, because you're talking about the NFL, you're talking about pro football. Me growing up in LA before I moved to LA, to Torreon, to Mexico, to my parents' hometown, it was USC. That's what it was for anybody living in LA that was a football fan. USC was the closest you were to pro, and the times it seemed like it was pro football. And in my mind, I was like, I'm never going to get to call USC games. I don't think that's even possible. And then look at me now. I'm doing Raiders and SC. It's if there's something higher than a dream come true, that's what I'm living right now.
Remarkable. I love that. I have so many questions, Harry, but let's get back into the origins with you. You were going to be an accountant, I read, and the way you got into this business initially was you were listening to sports radio in Spanish, and they would talk about soccer, and they would do a good job, but they didn't talk football, and you said, or you texted in, I think, and I'll let you tell the story, but then eventually you got on the show, and the rest is history.
Yeah, so growing up, I was terrible with a lot of topics at school, but I was always great with numbers. So I was like, okay, once I graduate high school, I'm going to go to school to be an accountant. I already had my own business when I was 17. And in the afternoons after school, I was working, listening to sports radio. It'd always be 2 national shows and then a local radio show. For that one, I started texting in. And one day I said, you know what? You guys are great when you talk about soccer, because that's what you eat, breathe when you're down there in Mexico. But when you talk about basketball and baseball and football, you're not that good. You should invite me. I said that jokingly. And they actually invited me to the show. And I started going on a Tuesday, and they were like, hey, if you want to come back next Tuesday, you can come back. One day, one of their main hosts went to South America to cover Copa America, and they were like, hey, we got more time available if you want to come by 2 times a week. So I started going twice a week. And eventually, that's what I was doing, going twice a week. The main host was also the main host for a TV station down there. And he was like, hey, we're losing one of our sports guys. I want to bring somebody brand new, and I want you to be that guy. I'll get you a casting, and it's all from there on, it's on you. And I aced that casting, went in there as an intern. 2 months later, got hired full-time, and I've been working in sports for nearly 2 decades since.
Wow, that's really, really impressive. And I know you just came from doing the local radio in Las Vegas. JT the Brick, that's a name I've definitely heard in sports radio circles before. So are you enjoying that part of things too? I mean, when this off season, you can kind of do some of the radio work also.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll be 100% honest. 3 years ago, all the media I had done before was all in Spanish. So when JT actually told me, he's like, hey, man, I want you to fill in for me, I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, you've been a guest on my show. Like, I would go in and do guest spots like for 15, 20 minutes, and that was it. And it was like, okay, but now I got to host by myself a show for 2 hours. And that first show, I actually, like, that morning, my stomach was all messed up. I was throwing up. I wasn't feeling good. But then I just got on the microphone, and it's like, hey, you just talk, get your point of view out there, get callers in, make it entertaining. And since then, it's like whenever JT is out of town for X, Y, or Z reason, either hosting Jim Rome, or like this weekend, he was out in Arizona for his son's college graduation at ASU, then I would jump in and be there for however long he needs me to. And it's fun, man. And I'll be 100% honest. I went from being super nervous to do English shows to now it's like I feel way more comfortable and in my element after doing it for a couple of years.
Nice.
When was the first time you got to broadcast a football game in Spanish, and how'd you get that opportunity?
2012. So here's an even funnier part of it that I haven't even mentioned it much, if ever. I moved to El Paso to be the sports broadcaster for Univision in El Paso, and to be their Spanish play-by-play announcer for UTEP basketball, not football. But the news director who was going to do the football games, once they told him how much he was going to be getting paid, he said, my wife is going to get half of that money because he was divorced. And I don't think I want to be traveling all around the country calling football games and spending my Saturdays for half of the money that they're going to be paying. Harry, do you want to call those games? I was like, yeah, sure. I called UTEP, Oklahoma at the Sun Bowl with like 24 hours of prep. And it was tough, but at the same time, it was the first opportunity that I got. And after that, it's been smooth sailing. Like I always say, it's like, okay, I get paid not to call games. I get paid to prepare for games. Calling the games, being at the stadium, that's the fun part of the games. Preparing for the games, that's the part where you're investing a lot of time, but that's where real broadcasters actually make that broadcast even better than it is.
So the USC gig came around. I mean, you were already doing the Raiders one, and that's really what you wanted to do. It was funny hearing you talk before the show, talking about Pete Arbogast, you talking with Jack Smith, who was calling the games, like all the different radio hosts that were there that are at the games. Everyone's there kind of doing their thing. But how did it come about that you end up becoming the voice of the Trojans in Spanish?
Yeah, I have my LinkedIn alerts on my phone, and I get like emails here and there. I don't usually check them out, but one day I actually clicked on it and it said Spanish play-by-play announcer, USC football. I was like, no way. That can't be real. But I still applied for it, and like less than 24 hours later, I got an email and being like, are you sure you can do it? Because we see that you're calling Raiders games. And I checked the schedule and I was like, well, it's going to be pretty tight, but I can make it for every game. I fortunately live 3.5 hours away from LA. It's not like I live in El Paso and I would be flying into LA and then going back to El Paso, figuring out flights. So, and then USC gets first dibs on me too. They got me the fresher out of the two. So I was like, yeah, I think I can do it. And you know what? I did it. I made it for every game. I made it on time for every game, for every pregame show, both in LA and in Vegas. But yeah, man, it's incredible and unexpected for me. LinkedIn. That's how I ended up with the job.
Very interesting. There's obviously a massive market for what you're doing, both with the Raiders and with USC. I can only imagine the pride that you take doing this job. But what's some of the feedback that you've gotten from fans? Because this was something that maybe 10, 15 years ago, maybe at USC they had it, but with the Raiders they didn't have it, and it's just not something that we've seen a lot of until recently. Now you're filling this need that so many people had. What's that been like, and what's the feedback been like?
No, man, dude, I'll tell you from my own experience, Connor, and sorry for the dude part, but I'll tell you from my experience, Connor. Like, I lived in Mexico in a time where we used to get 3 or maybe 4 NFL games tops on TV per weekend. I would be looking for streams online to be able to listen to the broadcast either in English or in Spanish, but they were illegal streams. Nowadays, my broadcasts with USC and with the Raiders, they're available on the team's apps. They're available on the team website, and people can listen to the games that way besides listening to it on the local radio. That is something where you're connecting the fan base, not only with the fans, like, for example, the Raiders. They have the marketing rights in Mexico with like 10 other NFL teams, so they can market down there. But fans in Central America, fans in South America, there's a big Raiders following in Spain. They can listen to the team that way, and it goes the same way with SC, where they got a huge Latino community in Southern California. Well, now you can make that fan base even bigger, not only with the alumni, but with just football fans all over the world having a Spanish broadcast. So that's a huge step. And here's something behind the scenes. Like, all the highlights that you see of me, I film myself. That's my own camera that I take. That's my own little stand that I have that I set up in the booth. And I record myself during the whole game and then just cut the clips, send it either to the Raiders or to SC, and then they post it on their social media, and they get tens of thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of views. My first clip that went viral was a Chandler Jones touchdown that the Raiders won a game, the walk-off, exactly, against the Patriots. And I was recording myself in that game. That clip went viral. They were playing it all over the United States on NFL Network and everything. And I was recording myself to be like, okay, I got stuff that I can post on social media. And I went from literally doing that to post on my social media to now the teams are asking me so they can post it on their social media. And for me, that's even better because now more people If they didn't know, now they know that there's a Spanish broadcast and they're able to listen to it.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, it's fun to hear this journey. And I was surprised. I didn't realize that it's been so long since USC had any kind of, broadcast in Spanish. Where, if you're a USC fan, like locally or in LA, or how do they, what's the best way to listen to the Spanish version of the broadcast?
So it's super easy. If you got the USC Game Day app, you got the radio broadcast, and you can either listen to it in English or in Spanish right there. And on the ESPN LA app, they also have the both broadcasts available. You go to USC football, and it gives you either option English or Spanish to listen to it there. Hopefully this season, I'm still waiting to hear more from USC when it comes to that. We can also be on the radio, but so far we're on the apps. And to be honest, nowadays, that's where a lot of people are getting most of their content on their phone compared to being on the radio. And most cars have the Bluetooth, the apps that you can just connect your phone, so you can listen to it on your phone and just connect it to your Bluetooth and listen to it like that.
I played at the beginning of the show, like the Woody Marks touchdown from the LSU game. And I don't know if you want to, maybe you want to do your, like the touchdown call, if you want to do one here for it. You don't have to, but if you want to. And then maybe where, the origin story, like where you kind of came up with it.
No, just Ryan Abraham está bajo centro, toma el snap, busca a Connor Morrissette, lanza el pase profundo, es completo, Morrissette se va, hashtag hasta la cocina, touchdown USC.
Very cool.
So with the Raiders, I do touchdown Raiders in honor of the great Greg Papa, who I grew up listening to with the touchdown Raiders call, and it's been 8 years since he called Raiders football, and he didn't call Raiders when they were in Las Vegas. And then when I started doing SC, I would find myself every night like, okay, what am I going to do to make it unique, different? And I was like, okay, you got the 3 letters, the 3 pauses for the University of Southern California, USC, and C in Spanish means yes. So for me, that's USC. Yeah. And I've gotten a lot of people telling me that they love that at the end it sounds like you're saying yes with the touchdown, with the SC.
That's cool. I think that's unique from anything I've heard, where the pausing of the U, as it does have, like, I don't know, it's like more Spanish feel to it for whatever reason, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I like, Well, thanks for making us part of it. That was great.
Yes, that's the only touchdown I'll ever score. From last season, Harry, do you have a favorite call?
Man, I mean, my first game ever calling SC was the game against LSU out here in Las Vegas, and it was pretty much a walk-off with Woody scoring the touchdown. So that one was very cool. But then you also got the walk-off interception against Nebraska with Greedy Vance, who now is with the Raiders with as an undrafted free agent. So I'm rooting for him, hoping he ends up with the silver and black in the regular season. So that's another one. And then who can say no to that Kyle Ford touchdown to win the Las Vegas Bowl out here? I mean, crazy for me. I live in Las Vegas, and they started the season here and they ended the season here. So those would be the 3 that right off the top of my head I would go with.
Nice. Sorry. Just technical difficulties. I moved like the shot that we were going to do. Anyway, that's behind the scenes stuff. But I was like, where'd it go? I was going to try to click on this thing. We had some questions. I don't know, Connor, if you had any more, we could do some Peristyle ones too.
I just pulled those up, so that's a great transition.
I love it. Yeah, Trojans fan.
I'll only be taking questions in Spanish, though.
Oh, yeah.
Just kidding.
Well, that's our show. Thank you. Trojans fan. This is all in the Peristyle. USCfootball.com message board. If you're not part of that, get over there. You need to be over there. As a kid, were you a USC Trojans fan, college football / NFL fan in general? And what is the most challenging aspect of your job?
So I was always a Raiders fan. I always tell this story. I got a crazy uncle from East LA, my Uncle Panda, my Tio George, who I give a big shout out to. He made me a Raider fan. He made me an SC fan. He was like, hey, these are our 2 teams. I was like, but the Raiders don't even play here. They're our team. All right, they're our team. And then SC, you see them kicking butt left and right. And then especially once Pete Carroll came on board, winning national championships again, I was like, hey, I want the Raiders to win a big championship too. They made it to the Super Bowl around that time, but they weren't able to win it. But I grew up rooting for both teams, being an LA native, even though I moved to Mexico when I was 10 years old. And then the toughest part of my job, man, at times it's just, like I said, the prep. people don't see the behind the scenes work that you do on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays when it comes to NFL, and then stops on Saturdays with college. But just doing all the prep and getting all your notes ready and having everything prepared for when kickoff happens. And that's something that when I grew up, I was like, hey, that guy has a pretty cool job. He just goes and talks about sports. And you never know all the behind the scenes work that goes down to have the product be the best possible.
Matt Will wants to know, what's your go-to pregame meal, and have you found a best postgame meal spot after leaving the Coliseum on game day?
So after the Dodgers won the World Series game the same night as the Rutgers SC game at the Coliseum, we stopped by a taco stand that was like right next to where we get to park during SC games. And it was really good and great price. So that's the post-game spot. But I usually, after the games, I literally just hop on the freeway and start driving back to Vegas to get here as soon as possible, and just stop either at any burger chain and grab a burger, grab some nuggets, and eat while I'm driving.
We had Eddie on the Peristyle. He had two parts: bigger honor voicing USC football, Raider football, or being a guest on the Keeping It 100 podcast. I'm not familiar with that one. Is that an inside joke or something? Or is that?
No, so I'm actually like I host a Lucha Minute on a podcast hosted by Conan and Disco Inferno, two former WCW wrestlers.
Oh, okay.
Who, for some reason, they enjoy when I'm on the show and I talk about Mexican Lucha Libre. But all three are great honors, and I take those with huge responsibility. They actually got freaked out the first couple of times they invited me as a guest because I had notes, and they were like, wait, you have notes? I was like, yeah, man, I come prepared. It's something that I do all the time. I'm prepared wherever I go.
And he wants to know, more electrifying, Reggie Bush or Dominic Mysterio?
Oh, Reggie Bush. You
Okay.
go with Reggie all the time. All the time, Reggie.
He's a wrestler, right? Like
Dominic Mysterio is.
Yeah.
He's the son of Rey Mysterio, who
Okay.
has been a wrestler for a long time.
Okay.
Travis21 wants to know, are there challenges to broadcasting in a different language that us gringos aren't aware of?
So I grew up, first off, in the States. When I was 10, I moved to Mexico. That was a tough transition, going from English to Spanish. But then I ended up living out there for 12 years, and then my Spanish became real good and started working in media. It was great. Moved back to the States, and it's like, all right, my English is a little bit rusty, so you just had to get the hang of it again. Honestly, like my brain, I can think in either English or Spanish, and when I'm calling games, it's usually all 100% Spanish. And fortunately, I grew up in Mexico watching football, so all the terminology is in there, and usually whenever something is happening, I'm able to express it either way. So I'm very blessed that I'm bilingual and that I'm able to get paid to speak in Spanish. So at the moment, there's no challenges in calling games in Spanish. I did call some games in the XFL when the Vegas Vipers were in town in English. And at first, that was a little bit challenging because I had never called a football game in English. But it's just like getting on a bike. You get used to it, and it just becomes second nature.
Yeah, I guess there would be some, that's kind of subtle, like things you would say, little manners, whatever it was. And one language, like, how do I say this in the other language? That would be kind of interesting. Trojan Lights, any metrics on how many Spanish listeners they get for the games, and how have the numbers kind of grown that you've seen?
So I haven't asked for it, and that's something where, like, if I had an agent, I'm pretty sure they would be trying to get those trends and see, like, okay, they're getting more and more listeners. Let's negotiate more money with this contract. But personally, I haven't. But I look at the social media numbers that when they post those calls, and I'm like, hey, man, every time they keep getting more views, more likes, more comments. And I'll say this, like, I appreciate SC a lot, like with Instagram, and instead of just posting it and tagging me, they have me up there as a collaborator. So it pops up on my feed, it pops up on their feed. And the night that they posted the LSU highlight, my Instagram numbers grew in like ridiculous numbers, with a lot of USC fans following me after that.
Oh, great.
That is awesome. The last good question that I'm seeing, Ryan, maybe you're seeing another one. The SC Priest B wants to know, and you kind of answered it earlier, but what's your favorite tailgate food, but Mexican food? What's the best Mexican food to eat at a tailgate?
So Here's a good one. So I love al pastor tacos. Those are my go-to. Those are my favorite. But if you have carnitas, and especially in a torta and the Mexican bread, I'll be stopping by your tailgate every single time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love carnita is probably my favorite. It's just good stuff. It's great. I don't know if there is another one here. How much? So Trojan Kevin, we didn't.
Oh yeah, I missed his.
How much interaction do you have with Arbo and crew, the college radio kids from KXSC and visiting broadcasters, and how have they treated you?
Oh, the student broadcasters, they're amazing. I was just telling right now Ryan and Connor that every time that the first game, the LSU USC game at Allegiant Stadium, Arbo actually took me with the student broadcasters, and he was like, hey, these guys are great. Get to meet them, get to know them. And then we were usually up in the same place when we were calling games, like in Michigan. I was in one camera deck side on the right-hand side of the camera deck. They were on the left-hand side of the camera deck. The Washington game, we were outdoors, like literally right next to each other. And they were great kids, and wishing both of them the best of success. And then with the English side, we travel on the same plane and usually like just a couple of seats away. So Arbo, Sean, Jordan, the behind the scenes folks, Keely, everybody has been fantastic with me. And like, I'm not afraid to say it's been the best experience in my professional broadcasting career, just seeing the way that SC has given me like the same treatment as if I was calling English games with them. Like they've been amazing. They've been great to work with.
That's really great to hear, especially with Keely. She's kind of questionable as a person, you know. We're just kidding. We love Keely. We're just joking. Just love you, Keely. We're just messing around. That's great. You get to do that and be a part of it. So, 1 year down, is this something you could see yourself doing for a while?
Absolutely. I mean, if everything keeps going the same way out here in Las Vegas, where I'm calling the road games from a studio, at times it gets like tiring for your body, but like I remember a game that we traveled back from the East Coast and very little rest time. I got home, called a game on the road at 10 a.m. Pacific time. By the time I was done doing a video and writing an article for Raiders.com, I got home and knocked out for like the rest of the day and woke up the next morning. It was, but it was satisfying to be like, hey man, I called one of the biggest brands in college football a game of theirs on the road, and then I come back home and call one of the biggest brands in pro football one of their games. That's a dream that I never thought was possible. That's a dream that I was like, I'm not even going to go to school for it because it's not even remotely a possibility. And then end up doing it. It's like, I'm going to take advantage of it for as long as I can do it. And right now it's 1 year down, hopefully many to go, where I'm calling both USC and Raiders.
All right. Well, we got to do the applause because we love it. Harry, great stuff. Really appreciate you taking the time and coming on. It was great to talk to you and get some of these stories. I didn't even realize that USC hadn't done that for a while. So it's great. I mean, like Connor said, I mean, this is a huge market, and it's great you get to be a part of it. You put yourself in a great position, and you're doing the Raiders and USC. I mean, you got to love it. So, again, thanks again for coming on. It was really great talking to you.
I appreciate you, Ryan, you, Connor, Chris, the whole squad. It's I was telling you guys behind the scenes before we came on the air, I follow all your reports because I'm not able to be there at SC practice. I'm not able to be there for the press conferences. So I listen to them through you guys, through your YouTube channel, through your social media, and stay up to date with like the latest news from the SC football team. So you guys do incredible work. I appreciate you guys, and thank you so much. I'm so happy we were able to make this happen.
Yeah, I'm happy too, and I'll have to follow you on Instagram. We need to do a better job of tag. I'll put some videos up from this, and we'll put them on Instagram. So House of Victory's been doing that when we were doing interviews with the players and stuff. But I guess I'll have to step up. Or maybe Connor will do it. I don't know.
Happy to.
Dude, yeah. I had people hitting me up yesterday on Instagram. Hey man, it's so cool. You're gonna be with the guys tomorrow at 3. I was like, really? Yeah, they posted, and then they saw me. Oh yeah, SC football. You guys posted. Hey, any questions for Harry? Let us know. Yes. I was like, all right, cool. They put it out there.
We had a bunch of like, was one question they wanted. You put rice in your burritos. That was one of the guys. Mex Trojan.
Not really.
Yeah.
Like, so that's the funny part. In Mexico, your burritos, it's just either like frijoles con queso, beans and cheese, or
Yeah.
picadillo, or asado. It's just whatever it is. Out here, they put everything in a burrito, and it's like this. In Mexico, you eat 4 burritos for breakfast, but it's like a regular burrito. Out here, you ask for 1 burrito, and you get like a huge thing like that.
Yeah, eggs, bacon, chorizo, all that kind of stuff in there. Like, all that. And you're from Southern California. He said California Mexican or Tex-Mex. Like, you're more of California Mexican, I would assume.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. Like, I lived in El Paso, where it's Mexican because you're literally right next to Mexico.
Yeah. Juarez,
my girlfriend. My girlfriend, she's from Houston. Out there, it's Tex-Mex.
Okay, nice.
So when we go to Mexican restaurants out there, it's like, it's a little bit different from what I'm used to.
A lot of queso and stuff, right? Instead of the guac. All right, well, great stuff. Thanks so much, Harry, for coming on. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come right back and talk some more USC football. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Oops, got the wrong graphic up there. We're back.
We're back.
Yeah, Peristyle Podcast. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Harry's the man. Thank you, Harry. That was awesome.
He's so cool. It sounds so much better in Spanish. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the fact that me and Connor scored a touchdown. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It needs to be like my ringtone or something, like that's great. Yeah, and then we played the clip of him calling the Woody Marks touchdown at the very beginning of the show. If you missed that, go listen to that. Definitely worth a listen. It was cool to see the video. I didn't realize he shot all that stuff himself.
I didn't know that either, and that's great self-promotion. And his whole story is a great story for people who, you think a door might be closed. Well, you got to go bang that door down. How he got the USC job, he just reached out to him, and that seems to be how he made a lot of success in his life. Like, going back to the sports radio thing, hey, let me come on, like, kind of joking but kind of serious. They let him come on, and look, now he's living his dreams. So, don't take no for an answer would be my advice after listening to that conversation.
Yeah, good stuff there. So thanks to Harry. We didn't do kind of our little intro to the show, but yeah, we're regular podcast. We are also broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook. So if you are watching us live in the chat, I've been putting up some of the questions and stuff, or the comments that are going along. So thank you for doing that. You can email us with questions, podcast@uscfootball.com. You can email me too, but podcast@uscfootball.com, or call or text us at 424-254-9141. There's the Apple Podcasting app and Spotify app if you're listening any of the podcasting platforms, but on Spotify and Apple, you can leave us a 5-star rating. And on Apple, you can leave a review. We got a couple reviews. We're going to have Chris Trevino, or they got to be jealous. The Cilantro Boys have to be jealous that we have Harry Ruiz on, and they didn't. Real Spanish-speaking person on the podcast, unlike the Cilantro Boys, whatever. But there's a couple reviews for them, so I'm going to let them read it. There's like a whole thing with Eddie going back and forth, so I'll let you read. But we have one from Bryce Winter WD. Says, 5-star review. Thank you, USCFootball.com's shows keep me informed and make me feel as connected to the team as I've ever been. To everyone on the staff, thank you for all the work that you do. Every show is great. Nothing cures homesickness like an episode of the Peristyle Podcast. Fight on. So that was very nice.
That is very nice. Thank you for the support.
Yeah, thanks, Bryce. We appreciate that. Also appreciate our sponsor, Trader Joe's. They don't have Trader Joe's in Vegas, so we don't really want to talk about it with Harry. We don't want to make him jealous. But it's funny. If you go to harryjoes.com, Harry Joe's, oh my God. It's been a day. TraderJoes.com. Harry can go there too. But if you go to TraderJoes.com, the first thing I'm showing up there at the top of is breakfast tacos is one of the recipes that they're putting up there. So you can go over there. A lot of cool stuff in all the different aisles. I like to go through. I try to walk through them all. It's not as big as some of the other grocery stores. You can check out a lot of stuff. They have fewer items, but they have a lot of really cool items and stuff. But check out some of the recipes at TraderJoes.com. Like breakfast tacos, and you can have some fun with that. I like making different things. I did the orange chicken the other day. Do that in the air fryer. It works pretty well. And then I just microwave some of the jasmine rice in the freezer. Boom. Put that in a bowl. Couple servings. Love it. do
Love
all
it.
that.
I was at Trader Joe's yesterday, picked up some of that soyaki marinade. You ever have that? It's a mix
I
of
have
soy
not had
sauce
that,
and
no.
teriyaki. I like to put it on some stuff I make. Had some lunch today with it. Very good.
Nice. We got some comments in the chat from Rick Rock. Thank you for the awesome information for Harry Ruiz. Continue with the great success. And then SC Dad, I haven't read this fully. Hopefully it's not bad. It says, big black eye for the, quote, cilantro boys. Ryan at Triple Double gets the scoop with the real cilantro boy, USC radio announcer. Yes, that's what I'm saying, SC Dad. They call themselves cilantro boys. Okay.
Yes, when I see Chris and Gerard at a camp, whenever that'll be, I'll rub it in.
Yes, they're definitely going to be jealous. We have a lot more cilantro than they have on their show. But good stuff today. So some of the news, we talked about the Bennie Wylie being fired and USC moving on from that. And it didn't take too long, but USC's got their guy, director of football sports performance, I think his name, Trumain Carroll, coming over from Kansas State. I actually downloaded another. If you're watching us, I have a picture of him, but it's funny. So here's a picture of Trumain Carroll in the purple for the Wildcats over at Kansas State. I downloaded another picture, and then I realized it was like a reverse of this image that they just, because they don't have them in SC gear yet. You have to doctor it. I'm like, oh wait, I don't want to have like the reverse image. It's like the exact same thing. So change it up. But yeah, I'd heard a lot of good things about Trumain Carroll from my guys that have covered Kansas State over the years. I've known them for decades and trust their opinion. I put some more detailed stuff in the war room, some of the behind the scenes things that I had heard. But yeah, like this is I think it's a great hire for USC, a different voice. And, I'm everything I've heard about Carroll coming in, people just love him. And I think, one of the barometers you can use is when someone gets hired away, like what did the people that, his old job think, and everyone seemed to be pretty upset that he was leaving. So when that's the case, there's someone that they really wanted to keep. Sometimes you get somebody or a guy you get from the portal, and there's a lot of questions like, I don't know, he wasn't that good. Like, haven't heard any of that on the KSU side. So, but yeah, so USC's got a new strength and conditioning coach. Jump right in, right? You got to go with the, their finals and stuff this week, and then they'll start workouts pretty soon afterwards. But yeah, any thoughts on Carroll coming in?
A lot of thoughts. The place I start is this move reminds me of the Danton Lynn move, where I don't know if Lynn was necessarily USC's top choice to be the defensive coordinator, if they could have picked anyone after moving on from Alex Grinch, but it made the most sense, and bringing him in has led to a real revolution on the defense, and UCLA was very upset to see him go, like you mentioned, Ryan. And Trumain Carroll, I think it's the same deal. USC had zeroed in on Derek Owings, the Indiana strength coach, but he ended up staying at Indiana. So then who do you go to? You go to someone else on the list, another really good candidate in Trumain Carroll. And to what you said, people at Kansas State were very upset to see him go. This is a guy who is going to bring in some new ideas, do things differently. It's a huge hire because the coordinators are obviously the most important coaches, but then that strength coach, I think, is the third most important assistant on a staff. And we talk so much in the offseason, well, if Lincoln Riley doesn't change, USC's in trouble. This, to me, signals a massive change from him, letting go of a coach who he'd been with for a long time in Bennie Wylie. So I look at this as major progress. People who came into the program who were here after Riley, like a Jen Cohen, like a Chad Bowden, they put their heads together and said, hey, how can we make this program better? They zeroed in on some areas, and we've seen that play out this offseason. And now, look, USC is the number one recruiting class in 2026. They have a new strength coach. We wanted Lincoln Riley to change, and we'll see about the play calling on Saturdays, but off the field stuff, there's no denying that he's totally changed on a lot of these key issues, and that should lead to more success.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's one of those things I've always said over the years, when if the team is struggling or if there's a bunch of injuries, or like this past season, faltering in the fourth quarter when you have leads, 5 times and losing 5 of those games, people want to blame things. A lot of times the strength coach gets blamed. The strength coach is a super important part of the program just because they spend the most time with players than anybody. One of the stories that they shared with me, the guys from Kansas State, that they felt like for Kansas State spring football, they cut it short. They only did 10 practices instead of 15 because they didn't have a lot of bodies. There was injuries. There were some defections. Not a ton, but they had some defections, and just there wasn't enough. So he gave, they gave the strength coach, Trumain Carroll, more time with the players, like an extra 3 weeks of workouts and conditioning. And so I think that shows that the Kansas State staff had a lot of trust in Carroll because they're giving up something that they would control and gave it to the strength staff and Carroll. So pretty. It's one of those things that you just kind of need. Sometimes you just need a different voice. Two parties have been working together a long time. Lincoln Riley and Bennie Wylie, Bennie Wylie, they've worked together for quite a while. And sometimes you just need to all right, we're going to try something different. Not necessarily that things were bad. I think we talked about this before. Wylie kind of did what was asked of him when Alex Grinch was at DC. He had guys smaller and fit and faster. And then once that changed and Denton Lynn came in, everyone got bigger, bigger, stronger, all that stuff. So I think he was doing the job that he was asked to do, but sometimes you just need a different kind of voice. Like you had mentioned, a voice from the outside with different ideas and all that. So I'm curious to see what kind of impact it can have. It's different than signing a 5-star left tackle or hiring, a hotshot offensive coordinator to call plays. This is a behind-the-scenes thing. There's always this optimism about, the culture's changed. We hear that every single time. But curious, all the moves they've made in the offseason, does this end up being the biggest one? We'll see. But it has the potential to do that because the strength and conditioning program is so important. The lifeblood really of any program.
The timing of it was a little head scratching to me.
Yeah.
Where if you're going to do this, ideally you would do it in January to get the guys during off-season workouts and just have a whole 8-month layout to get the new strength program going. I was listening to the Cover 3 podcast today, the CBS guys do, and they were wondering how big of an impact the new strength coach can have at this stage when it would have been more beneficial to do it earlier. So I do look at that, and we'll see during the season if some of the similar end-of-game mistakes are made. Maybe you think, if you had made the move earlier, different outcomes would have happened. But it's one of those things, to your point. It's behind the scenes. It's very hard to say, this is the strength coach's fault when something goes wrong. So that's just really the only negative for me. Everything else seems really, really good with this move. To what you talked about with the Kansas State people being upset that he left, Lincoln Riley, this signals that he's changing, and it's a real operation at USC where it's not just Riley. There are other people making decisions as well, and he, of course, has final say, but there are just more people with more power here at USC than ever before under Lincoln Riley. And after 2 disappointing seasons, I think that was necessary. And
yes,
I go back to what I said before. Ideally, this would lead to better results, of course, and if it doesn't, then you go down a different road. So it's a big season after all these changes have been made. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. And there's some optimism about the season, and we'll get into that in a second. Real quick.
Oh, just like every season.
Yeah. Scheduling note, USC's October 18th game against Notre Dame on the road in South Bend. It's going to be 4:30 kickoff Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, live on NBC. I think it's the same every time, but that wasn't announced this week. I think you had tweeted that out also, right?
Yes, so that game is, of course, a game that they play every year. It's on the schedule for next season as well, 2 years from now. But then it's not in 2027, Ryan. And I don't have any inside information on this, but we all remember what Lincoln Riley said in the summer at Big Ten Media Day in Indy last summer, how we're going to look at this, and if it doesn't help us win a championship, we might get rid of the game. That's not the exact quote, but that's pretty much what he said. And there was a post on the Notre Dame 24/7 site talking about how they heard the game might be in jeopardy. So I don't know if you've heard anything on that, but this might not be an annual game, which I understand, but I hate.
Yeah. I was texting with a source over at USC before the show and got a little bit of stuff, but it was hard to kind of read during while we were doing the interviews and stuff. But I would say I think there's a sort of wait and see.
Yes.
The new playoff and all that stuff, like with the format, what's going to be best. So I think there's a little bit of that, but it hasn't been extended yet. So it sounds like they're, unless there's going to be some weird thing in the playoffs that it's really going to hurt you. USC does have if they're going to end up doing like a scheduling agreement with the SEC, and you already have 9 games plus so much travel. I mean, there's back east because of the Big Ten schedule, which USC brought on themselves. They did this themselves, but I guess there is a potential for that to be a casualty. But I think you're going to have to wait and see what the playoff format is and all that, and if it would be detrimental for USC's chances, then I think there's a real possibility it would go away. That's what my gut feeling from what I haven't been told that outright, but that's sort of the feeling I'm getting.
I hope that that's not just a cop-out, and if it does change, they still get rid of it, because let's tell it like it is. No matter how big the field is, playing a really good team that's not in your conference is probably not going to help you get to the college football playoff, even if it's like 24 teams. So if they want to get rid of it,
well, the automatic qualifiers would help with that. So then it should open up, I could schedule anybody in the out of conference, and as long as you finish in the top 4 or whatever the Big Ten, then you're okay. But yeah, there's even that though. I mean, do you want to, your seating could be impacted and everything. So yeah, it's interesting. It's
tricky, and that makes sense too. But then like say you play a really tough Notre Dame team, and then you have a big conference game the next week, like you still could get 4th, but playing a really tough team doesn't always help you get to where you want to be. Like in theory it does, because you can play best on best, but like what if someone gets hurt is what I'm trying to say. You're playing someone like, look at Jason Tatum last night on the Celtics. He's just played so much basketball. He's never had a bad injury, and it finally caught up to him. If you're playing so much against the best of the best, maybe something bad could happen, but you don't want to view sports in that lens, but I totally understand why they would look at it. It's a very tough spot to be in, but growing up in Massachusetts, that rivalry game, that was always something I'd sit on the couch with my dad and watch, even though we had no connection to either program growing up. That was just such a big deal, and that's really one of the reasons I fell in love with college football, going back to like Brady Quinn and Matt Leinart, those awesome duels.
Yeah.
So I hope it isn't gone, but I understand why it would be. Maybe they do something where it's every other year, but it's going to be challenging, so we'll see.
Yeah, we will see with that. Jay on Facebook, do you know anything about the linebacker that committed yesterday? So that was one of our topics, Jay. So I'll throw this out there now, Connor, and get your thoughts. We don't have to go too much into it, but modern day 4-star linebacker Sean Scott committed recently, and also from San Bernardino 3-star linebacker Taylor Johnson, Cajon High School. So those are the 2 most recent commits that we haven't really talked about on the show yet. So any thoughts on those guys?
Sean Scott is a hybrid linebacker edge rusher. USC plans to use him more as a linebacker, but he's someone who can line up on the edge and rush the passer. He's a bigger guy. There's so many high school linebackers who project out to be edge rushers, and Scott is in that similar mold, but USC is really going to try to keep him at the traditional linebacker spot. He to me feels like a Mike linebacker going forward. I wouldn't be surprised if he learns alongside Desmond Stevens. So we'll see how that goes moving forward. And then Taylor Johnson, Gerard and Greg Biggins on our site have done an awesome job analyzing that commitment. If you're not a Peristyle member, you really should be. So I won't give too much away because it's VIP information, but it really looked like Rob Ryan was looking for a very specific body type, someone who maybe doesn't quite have the prototypical measurements of a true linebacker in the Big Ten, but they are looking for like a Swiss Army knife, a guy who's really fast, a guy who's really physical, a guy who has some safety to him, and that was Taylor Johnson. That's why this came together so quickly. The USC staff evaluated him, they got him on campus, and he committed, I think, 1 or 2 days later. So this is a guy who I don't think he'll play right away. He's a lower 3-star kid, but there's a plan for him, and the plan is to fit a very specific position within the Danton Lynn, Rob Ryan defense. And if you're a lower 3-star kid who fits that bill, like I'd be jumping for joy if I was Taylor Johnson. This elite defensive staff has this plan for me. We'll see who stays here, and there's always so much turnover, but USC really has a specific plan with this kid, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was a good player in 3 years, maybe even 2 years. Greg Biggins mentioned he might be a future captain. This is a under-the-radar kid to be really excited about.
I'm really bummed I didn't download the Jim Mora clip playoffs, like that. That would have been a good one for this next one. And we have a couple questions and we'll get out of here. But if you have a question, if you're watching live and chat on YouTube or Facebook, put questions in there and we can answer them afterwards. But I was listening to the Cover 3 podcast. You guys were talking about that, and they were doing a segment on like hot takes. Some of the takes were kind of medium spicy, some were like super hot, El Diablo, whatever. They had some really kind of weird ones, and they tried to do a bunch from all the different conferences. Anything from like the Big 12 would get 2 playoff teams in, to the SEC winner would be like 9-3. They would just have all these games against each other and like knock each other off. To the SEC would get 6 teams in. There was a lot of weird ones, or just kind of all over the place. Just what people threw their takes out there. One guy, I think it was Danny Cannell, said Miami wasn't going to make a bowl game. So some hot takes. Okay, well, one of them, Chip Patterson, the host of the show, was saying that he feels that USC could make the playoffs. And I texted it to our group, Connor, and I know you listened to it and put some quotes together from it and put a story up on USCfootball.com. Wanted to get your thoughts on it, and what's the reaction been like from USC fans? Obviously, a positive thing that Chip would say he thinks USC is going to make the playoffs. First time ever. But what were your thoughts on all that?
It makes sense to me because the defense, if everything goes the way we think it could, should be able to keep USC in every game. That should be the strength of the team on paper. And then you have a Lincoln Riley coached offense where there's some question marks. Quarterback's a little bit of a question mark, even though Jade Maeva did lead USC to a 3-1 record last year in his starts. New offensive line, a couple new guys there, totally new running back room for the most part. But like the offense with this guy as your coach, you would just think, okay, if we have this good defense, that should lead to success. That should lead to a lot of wins. So I totally understand the take. It's a big reason why I'm confused at some of these top 25 polls where, like, I understand USC's had 2 disappointing years back-to-back, but, like, they definitely have taken some strides this offseason. There's no denying that. So if I was making a top 25, I'd probably have them somewhere in the 20 to 25 range to begin the season. The resources here are what they are, and I get going out on a limb to pick them to make the playoff. I'm still computing everything in my head. I'm not ready to make any kind of prediction right now, but my initial response is I understand why, because if everything goes right, USC would have a chance. Look at the schedule, too. It's not as tough as it was last year. You do play Notre Dame on the road, which is challenging, but looking at the Big Ten teams that made the college football playoff last year, Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, Ohio State, USC just plays Oregon. That's another road game. They did have some struggles on the road, obviously, but missing 3 of those 4 teams is another good step. So a lot needs to go right, of course, but I do think USC's put themselves in a position more so than ever these past couple of years to, like, have some luck fall their way. They're making some strides in the offseason, but I'm not ready to make any kind of prediction here on May 13th.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I could see, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, they had a chance that, they win some of those close games last year. You want to turn whatever was causing those late, those losses into wins. You want to make it so maybe you're beating those teams by more points in the fourth quarter, so you can't, you don't allow a comeback and all that. And, they made a lot of positive changes, I think, in the offseason. The defensive line is going to look completely different, and we'll see how it translates. But it's got to turn into wins. That's just what it means. You have to go out there and win. They're going to get some benefit of the doubt just being USC, being in the Big Ten. They'll be in the discussion if you're like a 9-3 team, probably. Like there was a bunch of SEC teams in the discussion. Illinois wasn't quite as much. Even though they had better resume, I think, than the 3 SEC teams that were 9-3. But you're in that conversation. But in real, you want to really be a playoff team. I think it's like a 10-2 type of season at least. And you have a road game against Oregon, road game against Notre Dame. Illinois is going to be a ranked team that you have road. So there's some tough games out there. You have to win a couple of those, like, hey man, this team might be better than you, but go out and beat them. And then don't lose a bunch of games that you shouldn't lose to less talented teams. That's a lot. That's a big ask compared to what happened last year. Not that it can't happen. But I wouldn't be shocked if they made a run and this team looked good and went to the playoff. But it's a pretty hot take, I would say, since USC's never been to the playoff before.
The big problem last year, too, is Michigan took a huge step back and you couldn't beat them. Washington took a huge step back and you couldn't beat them. The teams that weren't as good as they were the year before, USC wasn't able to beat. And while the road games are obviously challenging, like Oregon, I don't think is going to be as good as they were last season. They remind me of Michigan from last year a little bit, where it's still going to be really hard. They have a lot of good players, but that's more of a winnable game than it has been maybe in the past couple years. Illinois will be, of course, a challenge, but Notre Dame I look at in that same lens, where they made the national title game last year, but they lost a lot of really talented guys, including their quarterback. So it will be a challenge, of course, but it's like these teams are better than what Michigan was last year and what Washington was last year, but those were examples of teams that took a step back and you still couldn't get the job done on the road. So I have just a really hard time saying, oh, yeah, no, of course they'll split those games. They're going to be really good, when they had easier opponents on the road who took steps back last season and they couldn't get it done. But of course the team's different. A lot's changed. I understand that, but I'm just so scarred by the road issues that they had last year. Their toughest games are on the road, like most teams, but just in general, forget the home road. If these were all neutral games, you'd say, oh, Illinois is going to be hard, Notre Dame's going to be hard, Oregon's going to be hard. You have all those on the road. That makes me a little bit queasy when I'm saying, oh, this team for sure is a college football playoff team. I just don't know if they can win on the road. That's a thing that we're going to have to predict, because we're not going to see it until the season happens, so I'm still working through that. But, yeah, I'm just scarred by that.
No, I hear you. It's totally understandable. Curtis is a little upset. I'm going to play this.
Is he still in the transfer portal?
No, I think he's out. But I think this is going to be more of a we played one of his voicemails with the Harvey Hyde show when you were gone. But yeah, let's play this and kind of talk about like expectations for the season. We have on the one scale, Chip Patterson said, "Hey, USC is going to make the playoff." On the other scale, not a lot of talk about this team being one of the top in the country. So let me play this from Curtis.
Hey, Ryan, this is Curtis. I had the unfortunate experience last night of watching Joel Clack's post-spring game, top 25. Not only were we not in his top 25, we weren't even the 5 teams mentioned to be runner-ups or next teams out. The experts don't think we're going to be any good this season, and I'm worried about that, because of this fantastic recruiting class that we have. Again, how many games can we get away with losing and keep that class intact? I hate to ask the questions, but most of the experts don't think we're going to be any good. Again, I am still angry about this. Curtis from Moreno Valley.
Well, thank you, Curtis. I think there's 2 separate things. I mean, we've talked about the recruiting class. I think the way this recruiting class is built is if they go 7-5, it's not like there's going to be an abandoned ship, I don't think. I don't think they're not buying into this team's going to be great this year. That's why the class, you might lose some guys, but it's not like the whole class is going to, unless something major happens outside of that, outside of losing more games than you should. I think this is more about like, well, why doesn't anyone think USC is going to be any good? Well, because they, like Connor said, they didn't win any games on the road last year. They lost to Maryland, lost to Minnesota. I think it's probably better to be in a position where the expectations aren't very high, but if you follow this program, you're like, yeah, they could actually be, there's a potential to be pretty good. If you're a fan and you don't get to hear that, like, are you hearing top quarterbacks in the country? Does Jaden Maiava's name come up? Teams that are, could win the Big Ten, or teams that could go to the playoffs. Like, you're not hearing, top 20, way too early, top 25 teams. You're not hearing USC get called much at all, which I wouldn't look at that as a terrible thing. Like, if you feel like you've made a lot of moves this offseason, it's a lot of the kind of prove it stuff, though. Like, they're not, people outside of Chip Patterson aren't willing to go, hey, I'm buying into everything they're doing, and I know it's going to generate success. They've done a lot of things that could generate success, but people aren't really like buying into like, oh, that's definitely going to happen. You probably wouldn't be shocked, Curtis, if it did happen, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of people going out on a limb saying, oh, USC is definitely going to be a top 10 team or something like that.
Chip Patterson had a hilarious line where he said, "My hand has been burned so badly by the stove of UFC winning the offseason that I can't even feel it anymore." So that, was funny to hear. But then he still picks them to potentially make the playoffs. So,
yes,
just because this has happened before doesn't mean things can't change. Looking at, or just answering Curtis's question, so I've said it all along. I think if you go 8-4, you'll still retain a lot of this class. But even if it's not that good, unless Riley goes somewhere else, gets let go, assuming he's back and Bone's back, you should retain the majority of this class because so many of these guys are local. That's why recruiting local is such a big deal. You can have these guys on campus. You can talk to them. You can reassure them. When you have guys from the other coast, USC starts playing like crap, then Georgia goes, "Hey, why the heck are you going to go over there? Come play here. We're doing way better." If you have a guy who's local and you're not doing as well, it's so much easier to keep them in the fold than the guy who's far away when things start going south. So I'd worry about the out-of-state guys if USC starts having a bad year. But to your point, Ryan, the need of this class is the Southern California guys, and if the record is 7-5, we'll see what happens with the coach. But, if he's back with the money that they're getting paid, because they're local, a lot of these guys are still going to stick.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. So I two separate things, Curtis. I mean, I guess you want to be talked about preseason. I mean, if you're going to get the Phil Steele magazine or whatever, what do you think? Is it going to have USC as one of the no, probably not. But following our show and the website and everything, the kind of changes that USC made. The class of 2026 isn't going to help, but you can see the behind the scenes, better decisions are getting made, better. They're utilizing their resources better. You're probably not going to lose guys to the portal that you really wanted to keep that maybe you lost this past. So I think there's a lot of positives there. But for success in 2025, I think you're banking on Trumain Carroll making a big difference. You're banking on the new look at the defensive line, year 2 of Danton Lynn, and quarterback making some strides, and Lincoln Riley being able to dial it in and still have the high ceiling at the quarterback spot, but raise the floor as well. So there's a lot there, but I don't think a lot of people would be shocked if those things happened and USC just was better,
They should be better due to the schedule, due to the returning players that they have, due to the transfer portal. That alone should lead to better than 6-6. I don't think anyone here is saying they're not going to be better than 6-6. It's just how much better.
Yeah. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. Let's see. What else do we got? I think we had a question in the chat. Let me pull this up. This is from Rick. And let me know if you have anything else, Connor, but I think that's about it, what we're going to have. Do you guys think we will be a better contender this year in the Big Ten?
Initially, of course, because you start Purdue, Michigan State. So right out of the gate, that should be 2-0, even though the Purdue game is on the road. Neither of those teams are anything special. Purdue is starting over with a whole new regime. Michigan State, they just fired their AD. They're having all kinds of trouble.
Yeah, that was weird.
I like Jonathan Smith, and their quarterback's from Southern California, Aiden Childs. I like him, but he is an interception waiting to happen. He's a high ceiling, but he makes a lot of mistakes. So
lots.
You should start out there, but then it all comes down to those next 4 games for me, and that's when we'll find it out. At Illinois, home against Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska. If you go 2-2, you're still in the hunt there. If you go 3-1, that's incredible. 4-0, same, but that could be 1-3 too. It's a really hard league. I think something that a lot of fans kind of overlook is USC's gotten a lot better, but so has Illinois, so has Michigan, so has Nebraska.
Nebraska could be better.
Yeah, it's going to be very challenging in the middle of that schedule and towards the end. So I think they should, yes, because the schedule starts out easier, but to what level, I don't know. I just have a hard time saying win after last season.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the questions I had for this week. This was kind of a fun one. Thanks to Harry Ruiz.
Was awesome.
He's awesome. Look at him. Look, man. Good-looking dude. Doing what he loves.
Yeah.
Calling games for the Raiders.
You love good things happening to good people.
And USC.
You can tell how great of a guy he is through that interview.
Yeah, he's awesome. So thanks to Harry for coming on our little show. And it was really cool that, he talks about reading our stuff and listening to our shows and watching our YouTube channel to help him get ready for calling the USC games. We'll have to have him on again, and we can have him do a little more Spanish. But it was fun to have him call us scoring a touchdown in Spanish. We have to clip that one. Connor and Ryan score a touchdown. Yay. Well, I think I was the quarterback, and I threw it to you. Is that or did I hand it off or something? I think I threw it to you.
That got lost in translation. I'm not sure if I threw it or passed it, but
okay.
I caught it or ran it.
Right.
I think you passed it.
I think I'm throwing it to you.
I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll go back and listen
I didn't get leveled. I got into the end zone.
Yeah. It's fumble. Let's go the other way. USC loses thanks to triple double.
That's why I'm not out there.
That would be bad. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. It was a little bit different time than we normally do the show, but we wanted to get Harry in there, and that was a lot of fun. One last push. Sunday is my Tour de Pier ride. If you want to donate, you can check out my Twitter account, my social media stuff, put a link in there. I've raised over I think $7,300.
Wow.
Super record. I think the most I was in the fours, like 4,000 something last year. And but now I'm number 7 in there's like over 1,200 riders, and I'm number 7 in fundraising. So trying to get that push. I'd hope maybe get to 7,500. I mean, 10,000 would be great, but that's a long way to go. But shout out to everyone that's donated, and appreciate it. Should be a lot of fun. But Sunday, Manhattan Beach Pier, May 19th. I'll be up during hour number 4. If you're going to Tour de Pier, I'll be one of the satellite stages, one of the instructors. So come check it out. But I'd love to get a donation, however small, tax deductible. It'll help fight cancer. 3 different cancer charities are involved, and it's a great event. I love doing it every year.
Love it.
All right, for Connor Morrissette, I am Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.